Here is something that is going to sound a little crazy when you hear it. The average 60-year-old in America is sitting on roughly $246,500 inside their 401k. And that is the entire result of 3+ decades of working a job. Somewhere in your own zip code, though, there is a 52-year-old who walked into HR last Tuesday, handed in a resignation letter, and quietly began retirement with less money saved than that average 60-year-old. What does that early retiree understand that the rest of the country keeps missing? That question is exactly where we're heading today. Because there is a real, specific, calculable number that tells you the exact day your 401k crosses the line into enough. And most people overshoot it by 5 years, sometimes 10. Stay with me through the next 8 minutes, and you'll walk away knowing precisely where your line sits. Let's start by putting a popular myth out to pasture. Northwestern Mutual just released their 2026 Planning and Progress Study, and Americans are now telling researchers they need $1.46 million to retire comfortably, a figure that jumped more than 15% from last year's number. High net worth households are aiming even higher at $2.67 million, and those targets aren't necessarily wrong. They're just somebody else's targets. Here is what nobody on cable TV will admit. The magic number to retire isn't a dollar amount sitting at the end of a rainbow. It is a math equation. And the moment you understand that equation, that scary $1.46 million headline stops applying to your situation entirely. The people pulling this off at 55, 52, even 48 aren't chasing a stranger's finish line. They're running their own arithmetic. And the formula behind it is far simpler than the financial industry wants you to believe. Let me walk you through it. October of 1994 is when this whole thing began, when a financial planner named William Bengen published a paper in the Journal of Financial Planning that nobody outside the industry paid attention to at the time, and that paper quietly became the foundation underneath every early retirement strategy used today. Bengen examined every 30-year period in US market history, including the Great Depression, multiple wars, stagflation, and every recession in between. And he kept asking a single question. What is the highest amount a retiree could pull from their portfolio each year and never run out of money? The answer came back at 4%. Withdraw 4% in your first year. Adjust for inflation every year after that. And historically, your savings will outlast a 30-year retirement. That is the 4% rule. And when you flip it around, you get what early retirees call the 25 times rule, which means you take your annual spending and multiply by 25 to find your finish line. Spending $60,000 a year, your number is 1.5 million. Living on 40,000, you're done at 1 million flat. Running lean at 32,000 a year, 800,000 gets you across the line. Here is where it gets even more favorable. In August of 2025, Bengen himself released a new book titled A Richer Retirement, where he actually revised that safe withdrawal rate upward to 4.7%, which means the math for early retirees is now more generous than it was 30 years ago. Now is where the story gets interesting. Fidelity's most recent data, drawn from 24.8 million 401k participants in the largest retirement dataset in the country, shows that long-term female savers who stayed inside their 401k for 15 straight years finished 2025 with an average balance of $508,700. 500 grand. Not the millionaires, not the executives, just the average dedicated saver who kept showing up when you're spending $30,000 to $40,000 a year in retirement, which becomes very doable in lower cost states. That $500,000 sits right at the edge of the 25 times line. This is the truth smart retirees figured out long before everyone else. It was never about reaching $1 million. It was about pulling your annual spending down to a level your savings could actually carry on its back. Two neighbors can both have $700,000 saved. One retires at 54 while the other grinds until 67. And the difference between those two outcomes isn't luck or lottery tickets. It is that one of them tracks their annual spending down to the dollar while the other one is guessing. The catch comes next. You can just reach into your 401k whenever the mood strikes, because the IRS slaps a 10% penalty on withdrawals taken before age 59 and a half, which means a 52-year-old with $1 million in their 401k is technically locked out of their own money, technically being the key word. Because two perfectly legal escape hatches exist, and most working Americans have never even heard their names. The first one is called the Rule of 55. When you separate from your job during or after the calendar year, you turn 55. Whether you quit, get laid off, or retire on purpose, you can withdraw from that employer S401k without the penalty. The IRS wrote that rule themselves. And for public safety workers like firefighters and police officers, the age drops to 50. The second escape hatch is Rule 72, also known as Substantially Equal Periodic Payments, or SEPP. This one cracks open your retirement accounts at any age you want, as long as you commit to taking equal annual withdrawals, calculated by an IRS formula for at least 5 years, or until you reach 59 and a half, whichever comes later. Break the payment schedule, and the penalties come roaring back with interest attached. And used the right way, this becomes the legal backdoor into your money at 45, 48, or 50. Which brings us to the gap that separates the people who actually retire early from the ones who only dream about it. Saving the money is the easy half, while learning how to legally reach it is the half that almost nobody studies. Here comes the hard truth. The single biggest reason early retirement plans collapse isn't the stock market, isn't tax law, and isn't bad investment picks. It is healthcare. Medicare doesn't activate until age 65, which means retiring at 55 hands you a 10-year stretch, where every dollar of health insurance comes out of your own pocket. Fidelity S2025 retiree healthcare cost estimate puts that future bill at $172,500 for a 65-year-old retiring today, and roughly $345,000 for a couple, while the average American walking around right now believes the number is closer to $75,000, less than half of what it really runs. For early retirees, the most common workaround is the AKA marketplace. By controlling your taxable income through Roth withdrawals, cash reserves, or carefully calculated 72T payments, you can keep your reported income low enough to qualify for premium subsidies. And some early retirees have ended up paying under $100 a month for a family plan. The plan for that 10-year gap has to be drawn up before you walk out of the office, never after, because this is the exact place where most do-it-yourself early retirement plans quietly fall apart. Time to pull all of it together into the formula smart retirees actually run. Step 1. Calculate your real annual spending. Not the inflated guess from some online retirement calculator, but your honest number that includes housing, food, insurance, the dog, every streaming service, all of it. Step 2. Multiply that figure by 25, and that becomes your portfolio target. Step 3. Add a healthcare bridge of roughly $10,000 to $15,000 per person per year until age 65, minus whatever IRS subsidies you'll likely qualify for. Step 4 is where you pick your access strategy. Rule of 55 if you are walking away at 55 or later. Rule 72T if you are going earlier than that. And Roth conversions if you've got the runway to plan years in advance. Step 5 is the one almost everybody skips, which is padding the whole plan against sequence of returns risk. When the market tanks during your first 2 years of retirement, your portfolio absorbs damage that becomes extremely hard to recover from. So smart retirees keep 1 to 2 years of expenses in cash on the side. That single move has rescued more early retirements than any clever investment trick ever has. Walk through those 5 steps, and the guessing stops. You'll know your number with the same certainty you know your own birthday. Here is where it all lands. The reason most Americans never retire early has nothing to do with how much they saved, and everything to do with chasing a finish line that somebody else painted on the ground for them. 1.4, 6 million, 2 million, whatever number flashes across the financial news this month. The ones who actually pull this off, the ones sitting somewhere quiet at 55, while their old co-workers are still answering emails. They figured out a single idea early. Enough isn't a number you Google. It is a number you calculate. Run your spending, multiply by 25. Plan the healthcare bridge. Learn your access rules and pad for the bad years. That is the playbook smart retirees use to know exactly when their 401k finally crosses into enough. If this video helped you see your own number more clearly, tap that subscribe button because I release one of these breakdowns every week. And drop your own retirement target in the comments below, since I read every single one of them. I'll see you in the next one.